Bonjour, welcome to Wahsa Citizens Education Center's radio Zoom classes. This is MBF3C, grade 11 college math, and I'm the teacher, Bronwyn Slate. If you'd like to participate live today, you can call the Wahsa studio at 1-800-465-7144 or 737-4017. You can listen on the radio at 91.9 FM and also on the television at Bell Express View channel 972. You are always welcome to join me live through the Zoom link, which is available both from me, your teacher, and also your DEC. Our classes are scheduled from Monday through Thursday at 2 till 3 in the afternoon, and we are in our third week of our 9-week course. At this point, you should be considering what you need to submit for marking. A reminder that the support questions, the ones with the pencil icon, are not for marking. These are practice problems. So you decide which ones and how many to do. If you are understanding a concept, feel free to skip problems. You don't have to do them all just because they're there. You know what is best for yourself. Be realistic. If you need more practice, let me know and I'm happy to send you more practice. The answers are in the back of your booklet, so check your work to make sure you're on the right track, and then you can ask me questions and clarify what you may or may not understand. The key questions, the ones with the little key icon, these are the ones to hand in for marking. So please do all of these questions. I will be marking them all, so please do them all. And show all of your work, your steps, and your thinking. This way I can understand what it is that you understand, and if you make an error, then I can understand if you made a calculation error, if you were working off of a previous error, but you did the work correctly at this stage. You just need to give me as much information so I can understand as much as possible of what it is that you actually do understand. So how do you submit your work for marking? There's 3 methods. The first method is scan your work in and send it electronically. You can scan using a device. If you have an Apple device, you can use the Notes app, and if you have an Android device, you can use the Google Drive app. Both these apps generally come with these devices, though they are free to download if you need to. On my YouTube channel, I have tech tutorials that show you how to actually go through and scan with each of these apps. So you can check out my YouTube channel if you need some support to do that. If you can only send pictures, you don't have an option to scan, that is fine. Just scanning makes the files a little bit smaller, a little bit easier to manipulate, but it's not a big deal if you had to send pictures. Then you can send them to me either through email to studentwork@nnec.on.ca and CC it to bronwyn.slate@nnec.on.ca, or you can send it to me through Facebook Messenger, where my name is B. Slate Wahsa. The second method is to drop your work off in Sioux Lookout. We have an outdoor mailbox at our location 74 Front Street. We are the bright red building next to the post office, and we have a small white mailbox next to our side entrance. Then the third method is to hand your work into your DEC. Your DEC can either send your work through the Express or fax it to 807-737-1732 or toll-free fax to 1-800-463-7852. If you'd like to connect with me through social media, both my Facebook profile and my YouTube channel under the name B. Slate Wahsa. So you can friend me on Facebook or subscribe to my YouTube channel, and this way you will get notifications every time I upload one of our videos. All of our radio Zoom classes are recorded, and then I upload them shortly after airing. So you can find them all there under a playlist called MBF3C. Also on my YouTube channel, like I said, I have some tech tutorials, but I also have short videos that explain common math errors and confusing concepts. So this is a good place to go and check out if you're struggling with something. This can be a good place to go and see what there might be a note there that might help you understand something. Math is a really visual subject, so I strongly encourage you to access the YouTube videos. If you can't join me live and watching the Zoom lesson, which is understandable, and you can't actually access the YouTube videos, you don't have access to reliable internet, please let me know and I'm happy to send you a copy of the recordings. This way you can get the full experience and you really are setting yourself up for the most success. If you have any questions or concerns, please reach out and contact me. My email address is bronwyn.slate, and that's spelled BRONWYN.SLATE@nnec.oa.ca. My Facebook is bslatewahsa, so you can connect with me through Messenger there. You can call me at the office at 807-737-1488, extension 2209, or toll free 1-800-667-3703. My office hours are Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., although I teach the last hour of my day, so that's not a great time to try to get a hold of me. All right, we are moving on to Unit 2 today, lesson number 6, which is simple interest and linear growth. Our learning goals for today are that at the end of this lesson, you will be able to solve problems involving simple interest, and you will understand the relationship between simple interest, arithmetic sequences, and linear growth. So you know you've met these learning goals because you can explain the connections between simple interest and linear growth in arithmetic sequences. You can identify what information is available in a real-life situation involving simple interest and can calculate the missing element. When we'll use this in real life? Well, we are discovering how the world around us makes sense. So our simple interest is part of the ways that money shows up. And so interest is something that plays a lot in our lives. And so understanding how that makes sense is really, really important to set yourself up for success in life. But let's first activate our brain with some mental math. I don't believe in Mad Math minutes. They stress students out and don't actually teach you anything. Either you know it and you're good, or you don't know it and you feel bad and you aren't getting any help. So instead, we work on developing strategies that you can use in various situations that you set you up for success and help you be comfortable and confident with numbers. Our question today is 525 divided by 125. And we're going to use the strategy of proportional reasoning. So this is the kind of question I generally probably would reach for my calculator and just go from there. But we're going to see if we can figure out what we can make these numbers friendlier. So with proportional reasoning, what this means is that we're going to make both of our numbers bigger or smaller by the same scale. We're going to make them smaller because that's going to make our lives easier, we think. So we're going to divide both the numbers into the same amounts of groups in order to have the same relationship, but have smaller numbers. So both these numbers end with 25. So I'm going to assume pretty confidently that they're both divisible by 25. So if I divide them both by 25, I'm going to see if my numbers end up becoming friendlier that make it easier for me to divide. And I didn't do this ahead of time, so I don't know what my answer is going to be. We're going to find out. So 125 divided by 25. Well, I know that there's 4 25s in 100, so that means that there's 5 25s in 125. So that simplified pretty quickly. Then 525. Well, again, I know there's 4 25s in 100. So that means there's 8 25s in 200, 12 25s in 300, 16 25s in 400, and 20 25s, sorry, I got distracted, 20 25s in 500. So then 520, there's going to be 21 25s. So that got our numbers pretty small, pretty quick. And now we can see, well, that 21 divided by 25, that's not going to be a super friendly number. But I know that 4 5s is 20. So that's going to be this is going to equal 4 with the remainder 1. Or I could say, I know that 1/5 is 0.2, so 4.2 is what this is going to equal to. So 525 divided by 125 is equal to 4.2. So you're even, depending on the level of comfort you are with your numbers, as you more time you do this, any of these operations, then you might even be able to use decimals or fractions. This is also like 4 1/5, which is how I was able to know that it was 4.2. So there we go. That was a pretty straightforward jump to make my numbers friendlier. All right, mine's on. What do we need to know before diving into our new stuff today? I want to make sure that everybody is comfortable converting percentages, because this is super important as we're looking at money and interest rates. So percent comes from the Latin word by the 100. And so what it means is that when we see this percent symbol, it means to divide by 100. So for example, 7% is equal to 7 divided by 100, which is equal to 0.07. And 12% is equal to 12 divided by 100, which is equal to 0.12. 1.25% is equal to 1.25 divided by 100, which is equal to 0.0125. 3.5% is equal to 3.5 divided by 100, which is 0.035. 24.75% is equal to 24.75, which is equal to 0.2475. 19.83% is equal to 19.83 divided by 100 equals 0.1983. You can see all of my examples end up having 0 point something because everything, all of my percentages are less than 100. So if something was bigger than 100, then we would have a number instead of 0 before a decimal point. But most likely, our percentages are going to be less than 100%, and therefore it's going to be 0 point something. It's really important to be careful if you're writing these down that the right number of zeros and decimal points you have. Generally, I would say rounding your numbers off to 4 or 5 decimal places. If you have a long, like if you ended up having a long repeating decimal, you don't have to write down everything or use all of it in your calculator. If you do 3 or 4 decimal places, 4 or 5 decimal places, you're probably going to be solid. But got to make sure that you are percentages when you have this percent symbol. When we're going to calculate things, we need to then translate it into a decimal. All right, so the other thing that we need to remember is what makes a year. So in terms of time, so 1 year is equal to 12 months, which is equal to 52 weeks, which is equal to 365 days. So when we are doing interest calculations, sometimes we're going to be doing things for a period of years or multiple years, or sometimes we might be doing it for parts of a year, but knowing how many months is a whole year, how many weeks is a whole year, how many days is a whole year is really, really important. If you don't have this memorized, just if this isn't something that you're able to just remember in your head, totally fine. Look it up. Don't guess. Don't be like, I think it was 50-ish weeks. No, we want to be precise. So if you need to note that in your workbook where it tells you this, then do that. It's really important to have this accurate. We always do 365 days, even if we're talking about a leap year. We're talking about this in general, so we don't ever do leap years with 366 days. Okay, so what are we going to be diving into? What does simple interest even mean? So this is around us all over the place. So car loans, mortgages, retailer installment loans, like when it says pay back your dryer at 30 easy payments of $12 or something. And bonds, which is an investment, is how is like actually like in the stock market or investing money with a bank. Bonds also use simple interest. So this is stuff that really does happen a lot in our lives. And many people don't understand how interest works. As always, it's really important that we define some of our language so that we know we're all talking about the same thing. So simple interest is when only the money that you invest or that you borrow earns interest. So that is a definition of simple interest, which is really important to understand because as we move forward, we're going to have a different kind of interest that is different. So simple interest, again, is when only the money invested or borrowed earns interest. The principal is the amount of money that you borrow or invest. The interest rate is the percent of the principal that is earned or paid as interest. So this tells us how much of your principal is going to get you interest, is going to be equal to how much you're going to get back or extra, or how much you're going to have to pay. The amount is the sum of the principal and the interest. So this is the final amount that we're talking about, and we just call it the amount. Okay, so let's explore simple interest a little bit more. Suppose you invest $1,000 that earns simple interest at a rate of 5% per annum. Per annum means per year. How much interest would you earn in the first year? So how we figure this out is that for every year, per annum means for every year we earn 5% of the amount that we invested. So how we figure that out is we just take our $1,000 times it by our 5%. And because we're just doing it for 1 year, we times it by 1. Now, if we're doing this on a calculator, when we're doing it by 5%, we need to put that into a decimal. So 5% divided by 100 is 0.05. So then if we do that in our calculator, 1,000 times 0.05 is equal to 50. Now your calculator might have a button like this that is a percentage button. You can use that. So how it works is that you do 5% of 1,000. It gives you the same answer, but I would strongly encourage you not to rely on your calculator. I would encourage you to change the percentage to a decimal for yourself. Anyway, so that is equal to $50. So in that first year, if you've invested $1,000 at a rate of 5% per annum, you're good at the end of that first year, you're going to get $50 back just because you invested that money. So what amount would you have after 1 year? So how much money would you have? So that would be your principal plus your interest, which is equal to 1,000 plus 50, which is equal to $1,050. So at the end of that first year, you'd have $1,050. How much interest would you earn in the second year? Well, simple interest means you earn the same amount of interest every year because it's always being applied to how much you invested in that first year. So it's still going to be 5% of 1,000. So that's $50. So then how much interest would you have earned altogether after 2 years? Well, $50 from the first year plus $50 from the second year is $100. And what amount would you have after 2 years? So you'd have $1,100 because you have your principal, the amount that you invested, 1,000 plus the 2 years of $50 each year, which is $100. So $1,100 is how much you'd have after 2 years. Okay, so this now says complete. To continue exploring, we're going to complete the table for 10 years for $1,000 invested with simple interest at a rate of 5% per annum. So we're going to make a table and we're going to see I have my number of years, the principal, how much we invested, the interest, how much money we earned, the total interest that we've earned altogether, and then our total amount at the end. So this is a very common way of organizing information. So for year 1, we see that we had $1,000 of principal, we earned $50. We've only have $50 in total, which means at the end of the year, we have $1,050. At the end of year 2, we have our principal was still $1,000. That's how much we invested. We earned $50 this year. So now we've earned a total of $100, which means we have $1,100 at the end of this year. And then we can continue the same way with for 3, 4, 5, all of our years up to 10. We can see that every year our principal is the same. We just had invested that $1,000 at the beginning. So that's the same, which means that every year we earn $50. Every year we're earning the same amount, which means that our total interest is just increasing by $50 every year because that's how much we earned. And then our total amount is also increasing by $50 every year because every year we earn $50. So then if we want to plot these points comparing the time to the amount, so our number of years we have as our X and our amount is our Y. So when X is 1, our amount was 1,050. When X is 2, when our year was 2, our amount was 1,100. When X was 3, our amount was 1,150. Continued. So we can plot that, and we can see if we plot each of those points, we can see that our growth, as our times increase, our amount increases at the same rate. Of course, that's what we've been saying. We go up by $50 at the same amount each time. So we can then see that this is a straight line. Simple interest, we are earning the same amount every year. So that means we have that constant growth, that constant rate of growth. We're going up by $50 every year. So this means that we have a linear growth. It's going to continue at the same pattern forever. That's how simple interest works. So answering the question, what patterns do we notice? Well, we notice that we're going up by the same amount every year, both in our table of values and our graph. And that is the key of simple interest. So simple interest is both an arithmetic sequence, means you're adding the same each time, and linear growth. So that means that we are increasing by the same amount each time. They're just different ways. Linear growth we're looking at on a graph, whereas an arithmetic sequence we're looking at the pattern of the numbers, but they all are the same thing. So the pattern increases or it could decrease if we were looking at paying off a loan or something like that. It would decrease at a constant rate at the same amount every time. All right, so now we just looked at one example where we calculated each year, but sometimes something is going to happen and it's going to be like 25 years, or it's going to be something that's big and more awkward to do it with a table, so we can use a formula. So we're going to look at the simple interest formula, which is I equals PRT, and this is on page 2 of your IL book. So this is what your book dives into first, and we just did a little bit of an explanation to get us there to understand it before we looked at the formula. So simple interest is the formula, as I said, I equals PRT. This is a capital I that we write. And the capital I is equal to the interest earned in dollars. How much money that you actually earn is what this formula is going to tell you. Then your capital P, principal, is how much is invested, or also could be borrowed, but we're just going to look at the lens from investing to start with. This is also in dollars. So it's the amount of money that you start with, the amount of money that you start investing, or the amount of money that you borrowed if you're talking about a loan. R is your interest rate in years. So the interest rate always has to be in years. It is if your timeline isn't a year, if it's only 6 months, if it's 12 weeks, if it's 5 years, we need to always make sure that we're talking about years. So we're going to look at what that means in a minute. And it's always expressed as a decimal. Yes, so your interest rate is always expressed as a decimal. So when it's in a percentage, you always have to convert it into a decimal. And then your time is in years. Sorry, it's your interest rate per year and your time is in years. So if you're dealing with something that is 6 months or 12 weeks or 5 years, we have to make sure that we're talking about it in the context of years. Again, we'll look at this in a minute. So this is what I want to look at in terms of time broken down. As I've just repeated numerous times, time must be represented in years. This is super, super important, super key. This is why I keep saying it. So what that means is that we might have to do a conversion. So remember, as we talked about at the beginning of class, 12 months is equal to 1 year. So if you are investing, for example, 21 months, that means that we need to figure out how many years that is. So we do 21 divided by 12, which is equal to 1.75. So 21 months is the equivalent of 1.75 years. So in our formula, we would use 1.75, not 21, because if we did 21, it would be thinking that we're talking about 21 years. That's what the formula is set up to be. But we are not. We are talking about that would be months. So in terms of years, it's 1.75. If our situation has it so that we're looking at weeks, remember 52 weeks is 1 year. So if it was 45 weeks in our situation, then we would do 45 divided by 52, which is equal to 0.87. And then if we were talking about days, 365 days is equal to 1 year. So if we were investing for 550 days, we would do 550 divided by 365, and we would find that that is 1.5 years. So always has to be in years. You're going to have to always convert it for years. Okay, so how do we actually calculate this? What does this actually mean? So this example says find the simple interest and the amount. And it just gives us a situation. So it tells us that the principal is 640, the rate is 12.5% per annum, and the time is 6 months. So the principal is 640. We don't have to do anything with that. The rate is 12.5%. So that means that we're going to change that. I'm going to organize this and I'm going to change it into a decimal. So 12.5% divided by 100 is 0.0125. So in my calculations, I'm going to use 0.0125 instead of 12.5. And my time is 6 months, which I need to convert into years. So 6 months divided by 12 is equal to 0.5 years. So I like to always write down, like I have written here, that I have my principal, my rate, and my time. I like to write it down so that I keep myself organized. This also means that when I'm marking your work, if you've made a mistake someplace, like you didn't divide by 12, you just did 6, then it's easy for me to figure that out. And which means that I'm not going to take away all the marks when you get the wrong answer. I'm just going to take away marks for your fact that you did your time wrong. So that can be really, really helpful. Then I also always write down my formula because it keeps myself organized. So I know what it is that I'm talking about. You can decide for yourself if that makes sense. Keeping myself organized is really important. So I have I equals PRT, and now I'm just going to substitute in the variables that I know and that what I'm looking for. So I is what I'm looking for. So I'm just going to leave that as I. P is 640. R is 0.0125. And T is equal to 0.5. Now remember, when I have brackets or when I have variables right next to each other, that means that I'm multiplying. So I just assume that that's something that you know. So just remember, I'm not going to go over it. I'm not going to write down my multiplication symbols because it takes up a bunch of space and they look like X's. So I'm not going to do that. So that's just important to remember that I'm multiplying. And then now we just multiply it. So we have 640 times 0.0125 times 0.5, which is equal to 4. So that means that I've earned $4 in simple interest. My simple interest is equal to $4. My amount, how much I have in total, is equal to my principal plus my interest, which is equal to 640 plus 4, which is equal to 644. That's how much I will have after 6 months. Not super exciting, but you didn't invest very much money for a very long time. So that's why it's not very much money. All right. Sometimes we don't know the P, the R, the T. Sometimes we have different information. And so then we need to figure out how we can solve for the information that we're looking for. So in this example, it says to find the principal when your simple interest is equal to 192. So that is your I. This question, we know our I, but we don't know our P. We're asking for our principal. Your rate is 6% per annum. So that means that R is equal to 0.06 and your time is equal to 4. So it's already in years, 4 years. So it's already in years. I don't need to change it. I am still going to use my I equals PRT, even though I'm not looking for I. I'm just going to have to rearrange it. So I can find my P, my R, or my T if I know my interest amount. I'm just going to have to rearrange my equation. So I still use I equals PRT, which is why it's important to write it down, because now if I look, I say, okay, well, my I know is 192. So that's going to go on the left side of my equation. And then my P, I don't know, so I'm going to leave it as P. My R is 0.06, and my T is 4. So now I'm going to simplify. 192 equals P, and then 0.06 times 4, we're going to multiply, which is 0.24. So now, in order to isolate for P, we want to get P by itself. That's what we're trying to get, because then we know that P is equal to what P is equal to. We wanted to say P equals something, or something equals P. So if I'm multiplying P by 0.24, if I divide it by 0.24, that's going to cancel those off and leave P by itself. And that means I'm going to divide. If I do it on one side, I have to do it on the other side to balance. Now, this is fundamental algebra that would have been worked on since like grade 7, grade 8, grade 9, grade 10. You work on it a lot. If it's something that you are not comfortable with, check out my YouTube channel or ask for help, because in order for it to make sense, I'm not going to go over teaching these steps. These steps you should have. If you don't have them, then let me know so that we can work on that. So if I do that division, I end up with 800. So I have 800 equals P. P is now by itself. That means that therefore the principal must be $800. So in order to earn $192 in interest, I'd have to invest $800. That's what this is saying. All right. Sorry, my forgot that I had to. Forgot that I didn't have enough room. All right, to make small room. Okay, so in this example, we have simple interest is equal to 20%. Sorry, $20, not percent. So I'm just having some computer issues. There we go. My I is equal to $20. My rate is 2% per annum, so that's 0.02. And my time, my T is equal to 20 months, which is 20 over 12, which 20 divided by 12 is going to be 1.66666. It's going to repeat forever, so I'm just going to say 1. So in this situation, when I have a long repeating decimal, what I like to do is I'm just going to use the fraction in my equation. Instead of writing out the long decimal and having to round it and getting errors, I'm just going to write out I'm just going to leave it as a fraction, and that's totally fine. If you want to write it out and round it to 5 decimal places, you can, but I like to leave it as a decimal, or sorry, as a fraction. So now we do I equals PRT. So I is equal to 20. P is what we're looking for. Our rate is 0. I don't understand why my computer just doesn't want to work for me. 0.02. My time is 20 divided by 12. So then I'm going to my calculator, I'm going to do 0.02 times 20 divided by 12. And I get 0.033333 repeating forever. So then I divide both sides by 0.0333 to get P by itself. So 20 divided by 0.0333. See, as you can see, as I put more threes, I get more of a precise number, which is why I like to just do it with a, I don't like to round it off, because the less threes you put, the less of an exact number you get. So, but it equals to 600. So in order to earn $20 in simple interest, you'd have to invest $600. Okay, so now looking at the rate, if we are trying to figure out what the rate is, and we know what the principal is $300, so that's your P. Your time is 2.5 years, so that means that your time is going to be 2.5, and your interest is equal to 140. So I is equal to PRT, but this time we are looking for our rate. That's what we don't know. So we still do the same thing. We put in 140 for our I, then P, this time we know, so we put 350. Then R, we don't know, so we leave it as R, and our T is 2.5. So then 140 is equal to 350. Remember, multiplication is commutative, so that means that we can multiply in any order on the same side. So that's 870. 5R. So then we're going to divide both sides by 875. So our R, and remember, we're expecting our R to be something less than 1. So we get 0.16. So that means that if we multiply that by 100, we get 16% is equal to R. And that's how we find our R. So again, the same, another example of trying to find R, you're doing exactly the same way. You're not doing anything different. It's the same thing over and over again. You're just always figuring out which one that you want to find for. We're going to look at how to figure out for time. So here we have our principal is equal to 500. Here we have our rate is equal to 7.5 PA, which is per annum. So that's 0.075. And our interest is equal to 150. So I equals PRT. So 150 is equal to 500 times 0.075 times T. So now we're going to multiply 500 times 0.075, which is equal to 3750 T. So divide both sides by 37.5. So then T is equal to 4. So T is equal to 4, and because we always want it to be in years, that's 4 years. So again, when you're doing simple interest, all of these, finding these different variables is the same. You do the same thing. You're just always to make sure that you're finding which variable it is that you're finding. So now you can do the support questions on page 6, questions 1 through 4. All right, we're going to do a few more practice questions where they are word problems instead of just me listing it. So number 1, Mac invested $525 at 7.3% per year. When the investment matured, she had a total of $576.10. How long did Mac invest for? So here in our previous questions, they just told us what was the principal, what was the interest rate, what was the time, what was the interest amount. Here we have to figure out which of these things are which. So I like to list my variables and then figure out what it is that I know. So Mac invested $525. So how much that was invested, that is our principal. So our P is equal to 525. At 7.3% per year, that's our rate, 7.3%. So that is equal to 0.073. When the investment matured, she had a total of $576.10. Now, that's a total, so that's actually the amount. That's not the interest that she earned. That's how much she had in total. So how long did she invest for? We are looking for the time. That's what the question's asking for. But first, we need to figure out the amount, the interest earned, because we know the amount. So amount is equal to principal plus interest. So that means if I rearrange, interest is equal to amount take away principal. So we have $576.10 take away $525, which is going to be equal to $51.10. So that's what our interest is. Our interest is $51.10. And now we can figure out what our time was, because we have $51.10 is equal to $525 times 0.073 T. So $50.10 is equal to, and now we're just doing the same math that we were doing before, right? The math isn't too different. It's just a matter of knowing what your numbers are. That is the most important part. So 38.33 T, that means we divide both sides by 38.33. So our time is equal to 51.10 divided by 38.33, which is equal to 1.33315. So 1.33. So that's 1 year and about 4 months. Because 0.33 is about a third of a year, which is 4 months. I would totally accept just 1.33. You do not need to convert it into years and months. That's totally fine. All right, number 2. Archer owes $2,638.94 on their credit card. If the annual interest rate is 19.99% and they don't pay off their balance for 60 days, how much interest will they pay? So as always, listing off my variables to figure out what it is that I know and what it is that I'm looking at. So Archer owes $2,638.94. We haven't talked about owing a lot, but it's the same as if we were talking about the amount that you owe is like your principal. It's how much you're investing. So $2,638.94 is your principal. The annual interest rate is 19.99%. So 19.99% is your interest rate, which is 0.1999. They don't pay off their balance for 60 days. So that means that we have our time is 60 days. But if we're doing 60 days, that means we need to do 60 divided by 365. This one I always leave as a fraction because it's never nice with a decimal, basically. So how much interest would they pay is equal to, is what we're looking for. So I is equal to PRT. This time we are looking for I. So we're going to put our principal, $2,638.94 times 0.1999 times 60 divided by 365 is equal to, now this is why I like to use Desmos, because you can see everything if your computer doesn't hate you. If your computer does hate you, then you can't see everything. It just will not let me move it. I don't know why it won't let me move it. I just want to move it. There we go. So I can actually see it all. Sorry. Okay. $2,638.94 times 0.1999 times 60 divided by 365. So this way, when I do it on Desmos, I can see all of my numbers, and that just really helps me to make sure that my information is organized and I'm doing it properly. So I get $86.72. So Archer would owe $86.72 in interest if they don't pay their bill for 60 days. All right, we probably have time for one more. Oliver hopes to earn $100 in interest over 18 months. If the interest rate is 3.2%, how much do they need to invest? So as you can see, these questions can get repetitive because we are doing the same thing over and over again, but it's still good to interpret the situations. So I've listed my variables. I need to figure out what I know and what I don't know. Oliver hopes to earn $100 in interest. So they want $100. So we want our interest to be $100. That's our goal. Over 18 months. So our time is 18 months, which is 18 divided by 12, which is 1.5 years. The interest rate is 3.2%. So that is 0.032. And how much they need to invest. That is the principal. That's what they're looking for. So once we figure out our variables, then our steps are basically always the same, right? So we have I equals PRT. So 100 equals P times 0.032 times 1.5. So 100 is equal to P times, so 0.032 times 1.5. See, this is why it's important to clear your calculator. So that is 0.048. So divide both by 0.048. So P is equal to 100 divided by 0.048, which is equal to $2,083.33. So Oliver would need to invest $2,083.33. It's a good idea to write a sentence because then you know if you actually answered the question that is being asked. All right, we're not going to have time to these last two questions, but basically they're the same thing. So you have the skill set to do what it is that you need to do. All right, let's consolidate what we've learned today. So this has been lesson 6, looking at simple interest and linear growth. Simple interest, we know now, is both an arithmetic sequence and linear growth because the pattern increases or decreases at a constant rate. We are always adding or subtracting the same amount every single time. I equals PRT is our formula, where I is our interest earned in dollars, P is our principal amount in dollars, R is our interest rate, which is a percent as a decimal, and T is our time in years. We also know that A, our final amount, is equal to our principal plus our interest. So hopefully now you can explain the connections between simple interest, linear growth, and arithmetic sequences. And you can identify what information is available in a real life situation involving simple interest, and you can calculate the missing element. You can find whatever it is, the piece of information that you don't know and that you need. All right, so as always, if you have any questions, please reach out and contact me. This is what my job is. My job is to provide you the information, but also help you work through it if you're struggling with something. So give me a call at 807-737-1488, extension 2209. You can also call toll free at 1-800-667-3703. You can email me at bronwyn.slate@nnec.on.ca or connect with me on Facebook at bslatewasa. Remember, this lesson, as well as all of our other lessons, are up on YouTube under a playlist called MBF3C. So check it out there if you want to review something. My office hours are Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., except on Thursdays, it's actually 10:15 to 4:15. So reach out and connect with me or leave me a message and I will get back to you so that we can figure out a time that we can connect that works best for both of us. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you have a lovely day. Miigwech.